my name is David A., and I'm an alcoholic. And only because of God's grace to the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have not found it necessary to. Now, have I taken a drink of alcohol today, and for this I am so thankful. And first of all, it is always a pleasure to be anywhere in Alcoholics Anonymous in a meeting. And as the format in AA has been since AA got started, that our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, what we're like now. It was on the last Sunday in August of 1950, over 39 years ago, that a group of fine and sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous invited me to come to an open AA meeting in Dallas, Texas. The Wednesday before that Sunday, I stumbled into one of Dallas's more affluent barbershops, and I fell in this chair at this manicurist table. Now, I was more at myself that morning. Now, being more at myself in those days meant that I was drinking. I wasn't too drunk. I could sit in a chair for about 10 minutes without falling out of it. I could navigate to and from the men's room, go out and get me another bottle of whiskey. I sat down, and this gal looked at me, and right there and then I should have known something was wrong. She didn't call me doctor. And she said, David, I belong to a deal called Alcoholics Anonymous, and I have not had a drink of alcohol in a year. And I looked at Edith and I said, you are a liar. Nobody stays sober a year, maybe a day, maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days. She says, no, I haven't had a drink in a year. And I looked at Edith and I wouldn't believe it. Because, you see, she had the reputation of being a mean, nasty woman drinking drunk. She could outdrink any man that she ever was out drinking with. She could outfight him. And she was a pint drinker, and she always carried a big black purse, and she had 2 pints of whiskey in her purse. And nobody could get in that purse and steal it. And when that tough old cookie said she hadn't had a drink in a year, that got my attention. And I had been in that barber shop on frequent occasions, sometimes drunker than I was that morning, sometimes not as drunk. But always drinking alcohol. And so I began to watch her, and I noticed she changed. I noticed when she was giving me my manicure that morning that she was busting my nails instead of my knuckles and my elbows and shoulders. I looked up at her face, and her lipstick was on her lips and not her eyebrows. And I sniffed her, and she didn't smell halfway between an Avon woman and a whiskey bottle. But more important, she did not grab her purse and say, now I'll be back in 10 minutes and maybe show up 6 months later. But I noticed the change, and the change was in her eyes. In Alcoholics Anonymous, we have 2 kinds of eyes. We have those sad, sick eyes. And then we have those happy, dancing, laughing, sparkling, sober eyes. And then we have another kind of eye, them glassy eyes. Or they'll get up behind one of these things, say, I ain't had a drink of alcohol, and then fall over. But her eyes were sparkling, and they were jumping, and she looked like she was having a lot of fun living sober. Then she turned to another manicurist in the same shop by the name of Moena. And she said, Moena, here is my sponsor. And she had 15 months sober in this deal called Alcoholics Anonymous. And I drank 4 more alcohol with Moena than I ever did with Edith. And I looked at Moena and I said, Moena, you are a bigger liar than Goofy over here. I said, Moena, we had a drink. She said, no, David, I've not had a drink of alcohol with you or anyone else or myself in 15 continuous months. Edith has not had a drink of alcohol in 12 continuous months. And little did I realize that what Moena said that morning, where she talked about continuous sobriety, I did not know at that time that it was one day at a time. She didn't say we belong to a deal where you can come in and get sober and get drunk, come in and get sober and get drunk, come in and get sober and get drunk. She talked about living sober. And that was to stay with me for 17 more years of the hellacious drinking that a human being can experience. And then she said, now, we have an open meeting this Sunday, David. And it's open so the public can come in here and see how an alcoholic can live the AA way of life and how an alcoholic can recover in the AA recovery program. And also to find out what AA is and what AA is not. And believe it or not, the greatest challenge that we have within Alcoholics Anonymous right this very second all over this world is that there are hundreds of thousands of our members who do not know what Alcoholics Anonymous is not. That we're not all things for all people. that the singleness of purpose of Alcoholics Anonymous has made Alcoholics Anonymous the envy of every self-help fellowship that the world has seen and probably ever will see. And then she says, although we do not give any awards or honors or medals for our sobriety, being that it is the last Sunday of the month, it is the tradition of the group that they have a sort of a little birthday anniversary celebration for those who have 1 or more years of continuous sobriety. And we would like for you and your wife to come to that open meeting and stay afterwards for that birthday anniversary party. And I thought that the only reason that people such as you would invite someone such as me to come to one of your AA meetings and stay to one of your AA functions is that you needed to have some good-looking, outstanding, and successful professional man upgrade you lepers in the community. And I'm glad to come help. And you know, in AA, we hear a lot of things in AA today, and I didn't know it then. But you see, since April the 20th of 1967, I have not found any reason whatever to leave Alcoholics Anonymous. To find an easier way to live sober, a more sociably acceptable way to live sober, a more fun way to live sober, nor a more exciting way to live sober. Thank God I haven't had to go to one of those action-reaction courses, concentration, movement, related disorders institute. When I got to you people, my wife was a related disorder. Hanging there till your drawers fall off, oh baby, and you know, sexual dysfunction coming on. Now I'll tell you, if you get as old as I am and been able to stay sober as long as I am by the grace, today I do not need a sexual dysfunction seminar. I need a memory course. We hear a lot of things today and say, you know, I'm an adult child, an alcoholic, dog, cat, snake, kangaroo, gorilla. I'll tell you right up front now. I'm an adult spouse of an Al-Anon. I had many years to go before I realized that. I certainly did. So after Moena said that, I went home and told my wife, Grace, and God, she was thrilled. Because people had long since quit asking us to come around. My wife used to ask me, why they were not asked at outdoor barbecues, square dances, ballroom dances, swimming pool parties, nightclub supper parties, pin the tail on the donkey, whatever drunks do on Saturday night. And I said, it's you. It's you. I said, every time we're asked to go out on Saturday night, you start on me on the Monday before. And you start screaming, you're not going to drink. You're not going to get drunk, are you? You wake me up out of sound sleep, 5:30 the next morning screaming, did you hear what I said? And you keep it up Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. And what a tremendous price society's had to pay, is paying, and guess will always pay. Those who love us, those who hate us, those who do not even care that we exist on this earth. What a tremendous price those people are paying to find out that the more you scream in our kind about our drinking, the more we're going to drink. And I said, and furthermore, when we get to where we're supposed to get to, before I can even park the car, you're out of the car. You run in, you grab the host and the hostess. You chase them out of the kitchen, through the den, in the backyard, in the alley, in the bushes, in the garbage, in the neighborhood, screaming, don't you give him a drink. Woman, you're sick. That's what's wrong with you. But through tear-filled eyes, she said, we go in the meeting, and I said, yes. And so that Sunday morning, I got up at 5:30 in the morning to get ready to go to an AA meeting 5:30 that afternoon. Well, now, what does a good, self-respectful, drinking drunk do when he gets up 5:30 on Sunday morning? Drinks alcohol. That's what he does. Let's face it, it's very simple. Golfers golf, fishermen fish, drunks drink. There's no big mystery to it. And I started sucking on a brand new bottle of whiskey. You know how it is when you take that first drink, that gets your breathing started. Then that second drink regulates your breathing. Then that third drink goes down to both heels and just sets you there. Now you're ready to do some real drinking. And I'm drinking and I'm looking up at the birds and the trees and the sky, and I'm hearing the neighbors screaming, Johnny, get dressed, we'll be late for church. And I said, oh, those sick people. They do not know what living really is. If they could just learn how to control it and enjoy it like I was doing, that they would find out that right after breathing in and out, God's given man the second greatest gift, and that's alcohol. Amen. Took another drink. Drank about half of that fifth of that whiskey and put the other half, the fifth, in the trunk of my car because I knew at that time that I was going to be required to have another drink of alcohol. Not knowing the exact reason until I come to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm one of these that firmly believes that if and when an alcoholic comes to us, that until and unless that alcoholic is willing to find out what's wrong with that alcoholic will never be able to find out what can get right with that alcoholic. And I went in and I bathed and I shaved and I put on everything rich and nice looking to impress those poor, sick people in Alcoholics Anonymous. I put on a beautiful, brand new tailor-made suit, white on white monogram shirt, monogram handkerchief, monogram tie, monogram drawers. Put on my diamond ring, my diamond watch, and the trademark of every good, self-respectful, high-rolling, drinking drunk, a brand new pair of custom-made alligator shoes. I look just like a used car salesman or a dope dealer, you know. And at 10:30 in the morning, I'm out in my long road Master Buick honking horn. And out comes my wife with the rollers in her hair, and she has on, it's that all your fault kimono that they just love to live in and die in and dwell in and cry in, where she lost the string around the middle and it's pinned together with a big baby diaper pin. And she's pulled all the threading and the padding and the fuzzing and the buttons off the front, and the front's just covered with tear stains and cigarette burns. It's what us drunks in AA lovingly call the Al-Anon designer house coat. And she looked at me and said, "What do you want, you sorry drunk?" And meanwhile, all the neighbors had gathered out. And her side is lined up over here, and my side is lined up over here. And I can still hear the fine ladies of the neighborhood saying, "Isn't it a shame that such a beautiful and fine lady and the mother of two beautiful little boys married to such sorry, no good drunk like him?" And my bunch over here hollering out, "Let her have it, David, let her have it." And that used to be the weekend entertainment in every neighborhood we lived in. We moved 24 times before we come to Alcoholics Anonymous. Sometimes at midnight, sometimes at high noon, sometimes at daybreak, sometimes ahead of the sheriff, sometimes with the sheriff, sometimes behind the sheriff. Just kept moving. I said, "Let's go to the meeting." She said, "Doesn't get started for 7 more hours, you no good drunk." And with that, she walked in the house. And that started 7 tough hours. Because I violated a very serious code in my drinking. Here it was Sunday. And I'm sucking on the only bottle of juice that I have. Drank half of it. The other half, the fifth, in the trunk of the car. Knew I was going to have me a drink. I didn't know if it was going to be within the next minute, the next hour, or the next 6 hours. And I knew that if I called a bootlegger or a taxi cab to go get some more whiskey, I'd blow the deal. Because I was when I drank, I rolled it all the way. And one of the biggest problems I had before I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, that people would find me. And my mother and father and my enemies, they'd find me and they'd pull me off my drunks, and I was not through drinking. And I would come in and I'd cry and I'd whine and I'd pledge and I'd promise. And I'd wait till they tucked some more money or check in my shirt pocket. And as soon as they turned their backs, I would run off to finish the drunk. Now, I was a stay away from home kind of drunk, not on purpose. I'd get drunk and I ended up in countries I never knew existed on this earth. I ended up with people I never saw before in my life. Sometimes with money, sometimes without money, sometimes with clothes on, sometimes the other way. One time I was gone 9 months. No one knew where I was. My mother, my father, my wife, my children, my patients, my enemies, friends, no one knew where I was. And I come running in the house with the same clothes I guess I had been in for about 5 or 6 months. And I asked my wife this brilliant question: did anybody call? That does not make for good marriage relationships, I'll tell you. And I knew that I broke the deal. Because you see, my ego demanded I take my wife to that AA meeting. Just in case those 2 ladies said they were alcoholics. And they were sober and the members of Alcoholics Anonymous. And they invited us to come around and we would meet some more people who would say they were alcoholics. And they were sober. And they were members of Alcoholics Anonymous. And just in case that those people had a mild suspicion that I may have a small minor problem with alcohol. I wanted to bring them the reason and show them the reason, and that was my wife. And I knew if I continued to drink, I'd blow the deal. And those drunks, sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous in Dallas would be on me just like gum on the heel of your shoe. Because when I got out of the service the first time in 1947, the sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous in Dallas, Texas tried to net me. They tried to net me in 48. They tried to net me in 49. They tried to net me in January of 50, and they thought they set the trap on the last Sunday of August of 1950. So I found just enough to nurse me along. And finally at 4:30, I honked the horn, and here she came, and off went. And we got up there, we walked in, and there must have been about 80 members of Alcoholics Anonymous, and their wives, and the kids, and a poodle or two jumping up and down. And it looked like to me everybody was smoking cigarettes and hugging and kissing and scratching and laughing. And I stepped back and I looked at those people and I said, by gosh, if they're alcoholics, and they are not drinking alcohol, and they are that happy, then they have to be on dope. Then I looked around, I saw them signs, you see, in an A group, and I said, my God, I'm in a kindergarten. And then I saw, but for the grace of God, my head up. Because I knew at that time that I was not living according to the dictates of God's will for a human being. And I'm one of these that firmly believe that if and when an alcoholic comes to us, even though many of us come to Alcoholics Anonymous without a full string of lights, that after we get physically separated from the agent that forces us to come to Alcoholics Anonymous, deep down inside, every one of us knows this. If there is a principle that we very seldom, if any, hear in Alcoholics Anonymous, that every one of us were born human beings first. And the minute we're born as a human being, and we're given the gift of life and begin to breathe in and out, right there and then is the beginning of and the formation of selfishness and self-centeredness. And from it starts our defects of character. And you pour alcohol in a human being that is unhappy and that is miserable and smarter than he thinks that anybody is. And he pours that alcohol, and it only happens to our kind of people and to no other people who drink alcohol. It affects us in such a way that it is the greatest thing that happens to us. And if we could just recreate that feeling, and we find that when we drop it in again, it kicks it on again. Until this alcoholic got to the point in his life to where he couldn't stay sober and he couldn't stay drunk, and he couldn't kill himself and he couldn't stay alive. And as a result of it, because you see, if this be not the case, that our recovery program would not work. It works on the inside of human beings. That's the precise reason that Al-Anon's recovery program works. Because it works on the inside of a human being. That's the reason why Al-Anon's recovery program works on the inside of a human being. Leaving the drink question aside. Because you see, Alcoholics Anonymous does something that formalized, organized religion has not, is not, will ever be able to do. On a continuing basis, that AA has had its success. Medicine has not, is not, will ever be able to do it. Psychiatry has not, is not, will ever be able to do it. Human willpower has not, is not, will ever be able to do it. Treatment modalities has not, is not, will ever be able to do it. Government agencies has not, is not, will ever be able to do it. Acupuncture has not, is not, will ever be able to do it. Hypnosis has not, is not, will ever be able to do it. Horoscopes has not, is not, will ever be able to do it. Biorhythm charts has not, is not, will ever be able to do it. Because Alcoholics Anonymous reaches down into the innermost depths of a human being, and all we really do after we get sober today is renew that contact that's given to each and every one of us at birth. And I did not know this. I certainly didn't. And so I stood there, and then they blew a whistle, or they hollered, they did something, and everybody went to me. And I went in and I sat on the back row, because I wanted to look those people over to see what kind of help I could afford to get. And the first talker got up there was a woman, and that's the lyingest, cheatingest person I'd ever been around in my life. And that woman said she was sober, sane, in her right mind, and had not had a drink of alcohol in a year. And I jumped up and I screamed out, "You are a liar!" And somebody said, "Shut up." You know, I went drunk after you when you tell me, "Shut up, mate." Well, there had nothing there to make. And then that woman started talking about a miracle. What seemed to be like 10 minutes on the one word miracle. After I got sober and I looked back, what I could remember, maybe it was 2 seconds, 3 seconds, but time passes so slow when you're drinking. And this time I tried to get up on the chair, fell off it a couple times, finally got up, held on the wall, pointed a finger at her, and said, "Tell it, you big liar." And then this woman said, as a result of the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous, she caught Christ back in her life. And if anyone who comes to Alcoholics Anonymous, unless they found that Christ is the truth, and Jesus is their power greater than themselves, that there was no way in this world that they could stay sober at Alcoholics Anonymous. And I said to myself at that time, what a heck of a trick to pull on a Jew. That them folks in there invited me to convert me. And if this is what y'all were, I needed to drink real bad. I'm asked all the time all over this world, how come there are not any more Jews in Alcoholics Anonymous than what there is? Well, you see, basically it's very simple. You see the way people have their noses fixed and their names changed, you don't know who you're sitting next to in the area. And then what difference does it make? But my mind closed and I didn't hear anything else that was said at that meeting. Because I violated a very serious code in my drinking and my living. Because I started drinking with, working with, getting drunk with, fighting with, cheating with the black and the white wino, which was then Skid Row at Skid Row today, and I guess it'll always be Skid Row in Dallas, Texas. And I've lived on 3 Skid Rows in my lifetime, one for over 6 years, one for over 4.5 years. But the last one for 14 months was the toughest. And I'm not going to stand up here this evening and share life blow by blow of Skid Rows that I lived on. But the Skid Rows that I lived on, there was no day and there was no night. And there was no sun and there was no moon and there were no stars and there were no clouds. And there were no seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, just total inner and outer blackness and darkness. And the best way I can describe that kind of existence is just bodies and feet. And you don't care if you sleep, you don't care if you stay awake. You don't care if you bathe, you don't care if you don't bathe. You don't care if you see your loved ones, you don't care if you see them. You don't care if you work, you don't care if you don't work. You don't care if you change clothes, you don't care if you don't change clothes. You just don't care. Now an alcoholic cannot stay on Skid Row, an alcoholic has got to get off of Skid Row. Because an alcoholic will lie about that alcoholic's drinking. That alcoholic will hide that alcoholic's bottle. And I'll tell you right now, if an alcoholic is not willing to share your bottle down on Skid Row, you are not long for this earth. I don't mind telling you. And I did not have to be down there. Because I came from one of the finest families that God ever put on this earth. As a son, I was blessed with the most beautiful mother and father that any son could ever wish for, hope for, desire for. A mother and father who dedicated their 2 lives to give the 2 sons that were born to that marriage, and I being the oldest, everything that was denied them when they were growing up. And if one of the sons is going to become an alcoholic, I do not know a better deal when you've got a mother and father that's willing to go to every and any length to keep you from hurting and to keep you from suffering and to keep you from bringing shame and disgrace on the family heritage and the religion and the name. 14.5 years before I got sober. The religion that my mother and father were born in, lived in, died in, and buried about. They lit the candles of the dead and said the prayers of the dead for 7 consecutive days. And on the 8th day they said the final prayer of death and blew out the flame in the candle. And as far as they were concerned, that I was no longer alive in their minds on this earth, that I was dead. And that was the greatest thing in the world they could have done for them about me. And that was total release. And after I got sober, and I sat and I wrote my 4-step inventory as it suggested that we do it in the Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know, I always thought that one grew spiritually how humble one was on their knees in sackcloth and ashes, and screaming and begging God for forgiveness for all the sins and our transgressions. But I found out in the Book of Alcoholics Anonymous that Resentment is the number one offender. And from it stems all sorts of spiritual disease. Now, what do we mean? First we resent, then we get mad, then we get angry, then we get frustrated, then we feel sorry for ourselves. Boo-hoo. And here it comes. That until we overcome the spiritual malady, only then will we straighten out mentally and physically. Now, there isn't an alcoholic in this meeting right this very second that before we came to Alcoholics Anonymous, many times we straightened out physically. We stopped dropping that juice in it. But why is it we couldn't stay stopped? Because we couldn't do anything about the mental obsessions of the mind. And there are a bunch of alcoholics such as us that exhausted every kind of alternative in this world trying to stay sober. And they come up with the AA recovery program. And that is a spiritual recovery program overcoming the spiritual malady. And you know, when I sat and I wrote my 4-step inventory, and I wrote about the hate and the resentment that I had against my mother and father and the manner in which they treated me as opposite my brother. And then I stopped and realized that up until the time my mother and father prayed me dead, they were the worst parents I could have ever possibly had as an active alcoholic. Because they never allowed me to fall. They broke every fall. And yet, sober, in AA, I could not fault them. Because they were doing the best. They knew how. Thank God my mother and father lived long enough to see a sober son and a family trying to get things back together one day at a time. But I had many, many years to go before I realized this. And I learned a lot of things down on Skid Row. I started drinking bay rum and wine. That was a standard fare. Later on, as I grew older physically and get more money in my pocket, I could go from that bay rum and that wine to that good stuff and never miss a lick. And come back down from that good stuff down to Gypsy Rose and Thunderbird and never miss a lick. I don't know about anybody in here. I was not drinking it because of the smell of it, the price of it. I wasn't drinking it because it was socially acceptable. I was not drinking it because it made you better this or worse that. I was drinking it because I liked what it did to me and with me and for me when it got in and down and through me. And I liked what it allowed me to do to you or against you when it got in and down and through me. And later I realized that the first drink of alcohol that I took, it affected my head. It said, David, every chance you're going to get, you're going to take a drink of alcohol to reproduce that initial effect. And right there and then, it was the beginning of a problem, and I did not know it. I learned a lot of other things down on Skid Row. Never get your back up against the wall, didn't have a back door or window you could jump out of. And I'll tell you, if you drank that wine like I did, that wine will hang you without a rope. If you smoke or anything, keep both hands free so you can hit and run. When I was 14, 15, 16, 17 years of age, run off and join Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus. Now, back in those days, the Ringling Show was the finest and the greatest under canvas in the entire world. And it would be a thrill for a youngster to go with a circus in those days with all the wild animals and the Wild West riders and the clowns and all the other things. Not me. I went because you could drink and you could fight. And I look around here and I don't see any circus looking. I learned the most beautiful concoction to drink in the circus that's ever been devised by man, called Green Lizard Circus Stop. A tremendous drink. Elixir of sodium bromide and Lucky Tiger hair tie. I used to drink that stuff and I'd see Bambi and those animals in Technicolor long before Walt Disney ever put them on. But I'm trying to live 3 codes of living. I'm trying to live the code of living that society was demanding I lived, and go to school and become a useful human being. And be of service to my God of my understanding and my country and my fellow man. And not end up in jails and in goody roots and in missions and sleeping in alleys and over steam grates and cardboard boxes. And then I'm trying to live the code of living my mother and father wanted me to live, and they had all the money. And if you had already been in all the trouble I had been in within and getting ready to get into, it takes a lot of money to get you out so you can get back in it again. And then I'm trying to live the code of living that alcohol was demanding on my life, and you're way ahead of me. You know which one went out. And here I am, I'm sitting on the back row of that AA meeting. There's no back door. There's no window to jump out of. That woman talking about Christ. And my body is screaming out for a drink. And I want a drink so bad it's killing me. And every time I stood up to walk through those 80 people to go out to the trunk of my car and get that drink of alcohol, it looked like 80 people stood up, turned around, pointed fingers at me and said, "Shut up, sit here and listen. And this is for you." And I hated every member of Alcoholics Anonymous that was in that meeting, and the horse and wagons that drove them across country. And I made a deal right there and then with those people in Alcoholics Anonymous. If they were not going to pour me a good drink of alcohol right there and then in that meeting and let me drink it, or else go out to my car and take a real good drink, that I was not going to listen to anything that those people had to say. And that deal darn near killed me. And it wasn't until I come to Alcoholics Anonymous 17 years later, a hulk of a human being. And they shoved a book in my hand called Alcoholics Anonymous. May I remind every member of Alcoholics Anonymous in this meeting, it's the only book in print with the two words on it. There's not another book greater than, more than, less than. It's not it, it's not it. And I don't know about you, but I wonder how many of us stop and realize that when we tell anyone, any place, anywhere, that we're members of Alcoholics Anonymous, how many of us stop and realize that we are the results of what's in that book, because it's within the covers of the book of Alcoholics Anonymous where the entire recovery program is, and not taken out of context. Now, I don't know about you, but tonight, before I retire, after I take my 10-step inventory of this alcoholic of this day, I ask myself, what kind of member of Alcoholics Anonymous have I lived this day? Am I one of these who's had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps? Or am I one of these who wants you to believe that I've had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps? They can quote all the steps and all the traditions and all the concepts and all the dates and all the promises and tell you what's on this page and on that page and look real good on the outside, but got a concrete block in the middle of the belly big enough to land the biggest jet airplane. Have I lived the kind of life this day, if anyone anywhere knows I'm an alcoholic tonight, a member of AA, and particularly it said at the bedside of a wet drunk, and not only a wet drunk, but also members of Alcoholics Anonymous that are having a tough time living sober this day. Have I lived the kind of life that the AA within this alcoholic is an attraction? And that alcoholics say, yes, I want what you have, and you people have, and I'm willing to pick up my bed and walk with you. And every night I take that inventory, I find that this alcoholic falls far short for what this alcoholic truly believes to be the true dividend of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I never will forget, they used to call me Boy when I come into that group. I was almost 47 years old, called Boy. They said, bring that book to us. I take the book to them. And they say, what does it say on the dust cover? And that was the second edition. And they said, it says that this is the basic text. And they said, well, that's where it starts. That's where it starts. Then they said, open it up to the first page, and I did, and that's the fly leaf. And you know there's nothing on the fly leaf. And they said, boy, what's on that fly leaf? I said, nothing. They said, do you know why nothing's on there? I said, no. That's because you don't know nothing. That if you knew anything about living sober, you wouldn't need the book. And then he said, now turn it 2 pages over. And I said, okay. And then they said, now read to us the year that the book that you're holding was printed. And I read them the year. And he said, now we're going to give you the key. It said the key, David, is that there are hundreds of thousands of alcoholics such as you who have come to AA, are come to AA, and will come to AA, that will try to change what's in that book. The key to living sober in Alcoholics Anonymous and the key to living the recovery program one day at a time is let what's in that book change you. And then you can share it and talk it over with the sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous who are trying to live the program one day at a time. Yes. But to go back to that birthday party, and as soon as that party was over with and that anniversary, I ran through them 80 drunks and family like a tornado. And I got out to the trunk of my car and I opened up that half-fifth of whiskey. Now, I don't know about anybody in here. I drank it down in 2 swallows. Now, that's the way I drank alcohol. I didn't put it in a brandy glass, run around and sniff it for 8 hours, and burn candles and incense and listen to Lawrence Welk. And I didn't pour an inch of alcohol in the glass, 14 ice cubes, and 9.5 inches of soda water, and put a straw and a fruit and a cherry and a half a Christmas tree on top of it, and suck on it for about 3 hours. To me, that's sick drinking. I drank like a dropper down that hole where the dude most couldn't put another one down there. But let me tell you what happened to me. I got that juice in me, I quit perspiring. My hair laid back down. I ran back up into that group and got a hold of the oldest sober member of that group, got to arguing with him about the quality of their fellowship. And he said something to me and I hit it. Now when I was drinking, I was awful bad to hit folks. Taller than me, shorter than me, fatter than me, skinnier than me. 2 of his AA babies joined in and we started to fight. And as far as I was concerned, that fight was a lot better than that AA meeting. Because I just whipping the dickens out of them 2 little sober drunks. And then they did an unfair thing. They took advantage of me. They sent in 2 more drunks about the size of the outside linebackers on any professional football team. And finally 4 of them picked me up bodily, 2 on each side, and threw me right out of that group. As I'm flying through the air, one of them said, "We do not need your kind here." And another one said, "And furthermore, you are too young to be an alcoholic." And I stood on that grass that Sunday evening, drunk and belligerent with my fist clenched, screaming and cursing and hollering to anybody and everybody that listened to me that I would never come back to this Christ soul saving organization as long as I lived, that I was not an alcoholic. I was too young to be an alcoholic. But the next 17 years, everything that could possibly happen to a human being happened to this human being. On a drunk, coming off a drunk right to this very second. I never did willfully murder another human being, fall in love with another man, and die drunk. Other than that, it all happened. Of course, I guess blackouts don't count. I don't know. I married this wonderful gal, and when we got married, she didn't realize she was marrying an alcoholic. And so when we got married, we did not start to build a marriage. We started to build a booby trap. One that could go off in any week, month, or year. I was recalled back into the service as a naval dental officer. Didn't have to go, but he gave me a chance to get way away from my nagging wife and them people were bothering me. And I went with a combat Marine division, and I got into more trouble than there's trouble. I was totally incarcerated with a leg iron for 1 solid year at a coded prison. Didn't know how I got there until after I got there. And when you arrived at that place, the word was that you never would leave. And I saw how some of them left, with sheets from the top of their head down to the toe. And there were armed guards around me 24 hours a day, daring me to move. I laid like that for 1 solid year. And I got out of it by lying, using my father's good name and anybody else's good name I could think of. And some very fine men took their lives as a result of their involvement with me, and they were hellacious amends that had to be made. And they were the first amends that this alcoholic made. And I was forced to do it by my sponsor, because he said, "You make the amends that you hate to do the most, and the rest become rather automatic, one day at a time." And I couldn't share this with you unless I'd experienced my own life. Now, as I say, I got out of it by hook or crook. And I talked my wife into taking me back. And we started moving again, and we decided we were going to move out to the panhandle of West Texas to raise our 2 little boys in a Christian environment. Now, I don't know about anybody in here, if you've ever lived in a little town of 3,500 people that lives in a Christian environment. That's a town that votes dry and drinks wet. And the two most popular people in the town is the undertaker and the bootlegger. And I was drinking every day, and I got up to where I weighed 245 pounds. And my blood pressure was so high that every time my pulse would beat, my hair would stand straight up and pump like an oil well. Had a fat doctor friend, lived about 30 miles away. I go to see him. He takes one look at me. He said, "My God, David, you're sick." He took my blood pressure, and he says, "By God, it's a miracle you're alive. Your blood pressure's high. The reason it's so high is because you're so fat. The reason you're so fat is because you eat so much. And the reason you eat so much is because you do not have any guts, you do not have any willpower, and I'm going to have to give you some help." And he wrote me a prescription for 60 of the most beautiful capsules I've ever seen in my life, called Memudan. And he says, "Take them as directed." And I said, "Doctor, is it all right if I drink a couple of beers while I take them?" He said, "I don't think it'll hurt you." He never should have told me that. So I went and took the prescription, went home, got it filled, went home to lose weight and stay drunk. Well, I looked at the prescription, and it says, "Take one 3 times a day after meals." Well, who eats when you drink? And every good self-respectful drunk knows if one's good, two's better, three's terrific. So I just took 3 of them and drank some alcohol. Didn't feel like I was losing any weight. Took 3 more of them, drank some more alcohol. Went in the bathroom, turned sideways in the mirror, didn't look like I was losing any weight. Come back out and took a handful of them, drank some more alcohol. Looked like my stomach was getting bigger. Finally, I took all the pills and drank all the whiskey. And the next thing I knew, I was out in my backyard, and I was picking peaches off of rose bushes. I don't mind. And they tell me I ran around that little town of 3,500 for 2 days, talking in the unknown tongue. And being one of 2 Jewish families in 5 counties around, they gathered everybody in to see and hear the miracle. Because word had spread like wildfire. The Jew had caught the Holy Ghost. And when I come to and realized what happened, I said, "My gosh, those pills are messing up my drinking." Oh, I've been to the psychiatrist. All the questions he asked me, my wife used to ask me for nothing. And we left that town and moved back to Dallas and started all over with a wonderful opportunity. But I'm taking me with me. And it wasn't long before I was down on that last skid row, emptying wine bottles and sleeping in them 55-cent night hotel rooms with your shoes tied around your neck. And I could not stay sober. I told you my mother and father had prayed me dead. By this time, my wife and 2 sons, they were not in communication. They were gone. And I was incapable of working. I was incapable of doing anything except one thing, and that's drink alcohol. Little did I realize that I was suffering from a 2-fold illness of mind and body. Living a lifestyle on their own as an active alcoholic, a mental obsession so powerful that was condemning me to drink against my own will, and the physical nature of the illness that was condemning me to die if I continued to drink. And no matter how many promises I made, "Please give me another chance. I promise you I'll never do it again. I won't drink anymore." But as long as I was an active alcoholic, the nature of the illness of active alcoholism demanded that I not fulfill those promises. And now I'm going to flip the coin. We come into AA and we get sober physically. And unless we're willing to overcome the spiritual malady and grow along spiritual lines by just being dry, the nature of the spiritual illness will condemn us not to fulfill promises that we make just because we stop drinking. And I couldn't tell you this unless I experienced it in my own life. You bet. Somewhere along the line on April 18th and 19th, 6th, 7th, I really don't know, I found the handwriting on the floor of the county jail in Dallas, Texas. Now, I've been in lots of jails, and being in jail is not a requirement for membership in Alcoholics Anonymous. By this time, I run out of people, run out of money, run out of alcohol. Got down to me couldn't stay sober, me couldn't stay drunk, me couldn't kill myself, me couldn't stay alive, and me didn't want me as me was. But me was going with me every place me went. And I screamed out on that jail floor, "My God, is there any help for me?" And I know right this very second that there not only was a God for me then, as there is right this very second, because I am still here, and I have not had a drink of alcohol. But when I screamed out, God, please help me, it was no conditions attached. I didn't say, God, if you'll help me, I promise you I'll never do it again. No, I didn't. Please help me. And I said, if I ever get out of this jail, I am going to look up those people at Alcoholics Anonymous. How I got by that old sheriff, I don't know. Because he had told me when I was released next to the last time out of his jail, that if I ever showed up in his jail again for drinking and doing the things that I was doing, that he would have me put away to where I would never bother another human being, dog, rock, or tree. And how I got by him, I don't know. And I started looking for the people in Alcoholics Anonymous. I found out that Edith had passed away. The gal who asked me to come to the AA meeting at her birthday party, first year. But when she passed away, she was continuously sober when she passed away. Her sponsor, Moena, had moved away. After I was sober 9 months, she moved back to Dallas, became secretary of our AA group. And she later went back to manicuring. I used to see Moena every Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock for my manicure. And in March of 1986, Moena passed away. And if she would have lived 2 more months, she would have been 37 continuous years sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. There was a man at that meeting. He was sober 8 years. He drank for 8 years. And this past May, he celebrated his 24th continuous sobriety of this stretch. The only one that I knew that was at that meeting. And I called him up. He wanted to know who is it for. And I said, it's for me. He said, well, we have a meeting tomorrow night. Let's just go and get it over with. And don't you take a drink of alcohol today and call me at 7:30 in the morning. And that's all he said. Boom, and he hung up. And after 37 and a half years of giving it the best shot, it was cold turkey. Well, it was more like frozen buzzard, if you want to know the truth. I started walking and shaking out of drunk. But when I come to the next morning, I was sober, and I did not have a belly full of tranquilizers, nor did I have a prescription for 500 Moan for this Amstel. 7:30, I called him. He said, are you drinking? I said, no. He said, don't you think I drank of alcohol today? Call me at 3:30 in the afternoon. Started that walking, and that shaking, and that jumping. 3:30 in the afternoon, I called him. He said, are you drinking? I said, no, sir. He said, do you want to go to that AA meeting? I said, more than anything else in this world, I don't want to drink anymore. He said, you want me to come get you? Being about as humble as Gaddafi. I said, I'll get there under my own steam. And he said, all right, I'll see you out there. He hung up. Well, I was in a terrible predicament. Because the only clothes I had to my name, I had on. An old pair of thermal underwear, an old pair of gray flannel pants with all my possessions in it, an old gray sweater with the elbows out the elbows, no socks, but I still hadn't quite lost everything yet. I had a pair of beat-up old alligator shoes. And the only money I had was 30 cents, and that was all that was left in the last blood I sold at the blood bank to buy wine. And when you come to AA in that shape, one is not doing well. And I've heard through the grapevine that my wife had thrown out all my clothes. And being very, very humble, I didn't want to go like that. So I called my wife up, and she hadn't heard from me so long. She wanted to know who it was, and I said, me. She said, me who? I said, David. She said, oh. Then she said, what do you want? I said, Grace, do you happen to have one of my old suits? She says, yes, I have one, and it's to bury it. As I look back now, I then asked that woman the most foolish question I have ever asked her in my life, and I said, do you mind if I borrow it for a little while? Boy, amen. She said, it's another one of your lies, and hung up. And she allowed me to come into her house and to get that suit. Now, there was an instant joy when I walked in there and told them I'm going to AA, because everything I walked by, looked at, inhaled, breathed on, she'd run behind me and spray. And I put that old suit on. I bid she and the young'un goodbye. Got into a Mustang that the bank was looking to repossess it but couldn't recognize it. Looked like an accordion. And off I went to the meeting. And I walked in, looked like the same people that were there 17 years earlier. And one of them walked up to me and he had a grin from ear to ear and he looked at me and he said, "We knew you'd be back." Now I'm going to tell you about the greatest day talk I've ever heard in my life. Every member of Alcoholics Anonymous has heard it, and if your group hasn't told it to you, you've been cheated. Now, hey, we don't have any speakers. We're just a bunch of talkers. Because ours is the language of the heart. And thank God it's not the language of the gutter. And if there's one thing with all the modern computerization that we have in the world today, there's one thing our General Service Conference can't do, nor can our General Service Office do. And that is computerize the language of the heart. Because that is an inside job of a human being. And here comes the greatest day talk I've ever heard. A member who stood at the door and greeted all the new people. He stuck his hand out. I grabbed it. Mine was wet. His was dry. Mine slipped away and I had to grab it again. And then he said to me, "Welcome. Come in and sit down and have a cup of coffee." We understand exactly how you feel. That's the greatest day talk I've ever heard in my life. It's the first time in the last 17 years of my drinking anyone shook my hand. First time in the last 17 years of my drinking anyone invited me in. It's the first time in the last 17 years of my drinking anyone asked me to sit down and have a cup of coffee with them. It's the first time in the last 17 years of my drinking anyone said, "We understand exactly how you feel." And when the meeting started, it was the first time in the last 17 years of my drinking anyone asked me, invited me to come in and sit with them anywhere. And I'm still shaking and I'm still jumping and the drunks are on either side of me. And they're putting their hands on my knees and my elbows and my shoulders and they're saying, "Easy does it. First things first. This too will pass." And then when that was over with, it was the first time in the last 17 years of my drinking anyone allowed me to stand and pray with them. Honestly. And I did not know the Lord's Prayer. And no one called me an atheist. No one called me an agnostic. And no one called me an idiot. And no one called me a dummy. And after that was over with, it was the first time in the last 17 years of my drinking that people walked up to me and they hugged me and they kissed me and they told me they loved me for who I was and what I had done and the kind of life I'd been living. And when I got ready to leave, it was the first time, that meeting was the first time in the last 17 years of my drinking. Those wonderful people walked up to me and they said, "David, please come back. We need you and you need us." Folks, that is Alcoholics Anonymous. Nothing more. Nothing less. Just God's grace, miracle of sobriety, working through the sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous, who are hugging and loving an alcoholic who thought life was over with, had no more desire to live, everything that he thought that was near and dear to it. But I missed two things. I was still breathing out, in and out, and I found out that God loved me. And I found it through people. And I found it through the people in Alcoholics Anonymous. When I got to you people, little I realized my wife and two sons would ever be under one roof again. Well, that marriage had been written off by everything and everybody that had no right to be, but only because of God's grace through the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous in my life, and only because of God's grace through the miracle of Al-Anon in Grace's life. That beautiful and wonderful lady this past June the 10th, Grace and I celebrated 46 years together, and that's pretty good for a drunk. Although I was not there for many, many years. Now, I'm not going to stand up here and tell you, because I'm in AA, and Grace is in Al-Anon, that our marriage is absolutely perfect, that the butterflies are just beautiful and tranquil, that the bluebirds are hugging and kissing and cooing. Heck no. We have a few short rounds every now and then. We have a few long rounds every now and then. That's what you call clearing the air, communicating. And the best way I can describe our marriage today is built on solid, constructive imperfection. Because it's by our imperfections that we grow. And anyway, I go to 6, 7, 8 meetings a week. She goes to as many as 5, 6 Al-Anon meetings a week. And we don't see each other enough to have all that nitpicking, arguing, and fighting and fussing. The two young boys are now tremendously successful men. And I didn't have a darn thing to do with it. Because their mother was their mother, their mother was their father, their mother was their Santa Claus. Everything that I wanted to do
And today, the oldest one's going to kill me when I was 15 years of age for what I was doing to their mother. The wildness left his eyes. He dropped that butcher knife. He spat in my face. He said, "You're no longer my father, and I'm no longer your son," and he walked out of my life. And I had no communication with him for many years. But only because of God's grace through the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous in this alcoholic's life, and only because of God's grace through the miracle of Al-Anon in the family life, today I'll tell you. Those two sons, they love their father, and their father loves them so much. We not only have a wonderful father and son relationship, but more important, we're the best of friends. When I got sober, I had to go to the regulatory agency that licensed my profession to make a living. And I had to go tell them the truth of what I did. Not promise them. Promises kill our kind of people. They allowed me to go back to work. Now I'm asked all the time, and y'all have heard just the nicer parts of my story. I'm asked, you've been locked up over long periods of time, you've been gone, you stayed drunk. How did you ever get through school? Well, I was my class valedictorian in high school. I finished second of a class of 450 at Southern Methodist University. I am a graduate of Baylor University College of Dentistry. And they said, "How did you do it?" Real simple. You cheat. It does not take our kind long to find another human being who will do for us what we cannot possibly do for ourselves. And so you see, only because of God's grace through the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have a sober life today. And only because of God's grace through the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have not found it necessary to, nor have I taken a drink of an alcoholic drink since April the 20th of 1967. And only because of God's grace through the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have a God today, a God of my very own. A God I found through the big book, and through the 12 steps, and through you people, and from nowhere else. And only because of God's grace through the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have a family that loves and respects me. I have the best way to make a living I have ever had in my life. I have a roof over my head. I have hundreds of friends in Alcoholics Anonymous, thousands of friends in Alcoholics Anonymous, Al-Anon, Al-Anon, the world in which we all live in. I have 2 cars with gasoline in them, I hope. I have a few dollars in the bank and a few dollars in my pocket, not many. I have some reasonably nice clothes today. I have meat in the pantry and grocery grocery in the pantry and meat in the refrigerator. And I'll tell you one thing: if you want anything any more than that, you're either oversexed or plumb crazy. And this is not me. This is all Alcoholics Anonymous, because ours is not a personal success story, but one of colossal human failure converted into great strength by the alchemy of the living grace of God, as is expressed through the recovery program of Alcoholics Anonymous and our fellowship therein. And I'm going to leave you with something. Framed in our archives, in our General Service office, is a letter that was written to our co-founder Bill on December the 30th, 1946. It was written to Bill by a non-alcoholic whose family name is perhaps the most famous family name that the world has ever known when it comes to banking, money, real estate, grants, energy. A non-alcoholic who loved AA more than anything else in the world, and his non-alcoholic friends, and many of us believe in AA, that if it hadn't been for that fine non-alcoholic and his non-alcoholic friends, that our big book never been written, and Bill and Dr. Bob probably wouldn't have gone on. And this letter was written by John D. Rockefeller Jr. to our co-founder Bill, thanking him for a wartime printing of the Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. The first part of the letter refers to the inscription on the flyleaf, but this is the part of the letter I'm going to leave with you and share with you. Quote to Bill: "It must be a great satisfaction for you to realize that the helping hand that you extended to a needy brother many years ago has resulted in the widespread extension of that brotherly act. The regenerating power of the Spirit of that helping hand
has been the means by which countless lives have been saved that otherwise would have been wrecked. May God continue to bless you and use you ever increasingly as His chosen instrument in the rebuilding of broken lives. Every one of us in this meeting, we're here as a result of the extension of that friendly hand from Bill to Dr. Bob to Bill Dodson, and here we are now. It has resulted in the regenerating of the power of the Spirit to live in the realm of God's Spirit and God's sunshine, and in the realm of sobriety in this real world of reality. Sober. If there is a hope, if there is a desire that I have for each and every one of us, and a prayer, that we continue to let God bless us and use us ever increasingly as His chosen instrument in rebuilding and broken lives. And how will God continue to do this? And that is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. God bless each and every one, and love you. Thank you so much.